Well, it's now summer 2022. I made this video 7 years ago, and I just noticed somebody 3 years ago commented that it needs a voice. So I'm right on that, no hanging about. I actually made this model several years before to demonstrate the principles behind the Otis Safety Mechanism to my young son. He wasn't scared of lifts, but he was fascinated by how they work. Over a decade later, he has his master's in engineering and is working as an engineer, so I guess his interest was piqued. One thing that probably strikes you is how big the whole system is for what appears to its users as a few doors and a smallish box. Now there are actually two sets of doors, one on the building side and another on the lift cabin. You often miss this because modern designs have the two operate smoothly together. So let's take it apart and see the relatively simple components. In essence, there are two equal weights with a cable, string, between them. Ideally, they are the same weight. This is impossible in practice, of course, as people get in and out. Since all this is made of MDF, the two boxes here are of similar size, but in the real world they try to make the counterweight as small and unobtrusive as possible. This complex looking mechanism on top of the cable is the Otis Safety Mechanism and is the main point of the model. The principle is very simple. The cable attaches to the mechanism and the cabin hangs below. The weight of the cabin is used to pull the pins back. When the weight is removed, for example if the cabin goes into free fall following a cable break, these pins shoot out and engage with teeth in the lift shaft. So, just hanging from the cables, the weight of the cabin retracts the pins. As soon as the weight is removed, they spring out. Later, when you see it in action, the pins are hidden by the lift shaft, but we can observe these wooden dowels on the outside to evidence the movement. Let's put it back together. Now it's back in place, you can see the counterweight at the opposite end to the cabin. When the cabin is at the top, the counterweight is at the bottom. The motor here is represented by the red handle. The string is simply looped over it. There is very little grip and only a slight force can be applied, but that's all that is necessary as the cabin and counterweight are in balance. So let's imagine the cabin has stopped mid-floor. A giant pair of scissors comes along and cuts the cable. Both counterweight and cabin should crash to the bottom. Well, for the counterweight that's true, but for the Otis mechanism on the main cabin pretty much stops the travel before it's even begun. Now the pins have fired and locked in the lift shaft. It's hard to see because they are buried in the side, doing their job. You can, however, see the movement in the dowels on the side. The poor counterweight, however, simply crashed to the ground floor. The cabin has stopped right near the top, hardly any fall in it at all. Now an attempt with 7-year-old slow motion technology to see that the pins firing.